Hello YouTubers, it's me again, and I am here for the most exciting tutorial in the world. So it's not a full tutorial really, more of a quick how-to, and it is how to make a fez. And this is in honor of the Doctor Who 50th anniversary, which on November 25th, or 23rd in the UK, and people who have, streaming BBC America. But the 25th in movie theaters, it's the day of the Doctor. So I'm really excited for this. I'm a huge Whovian, and I am going to make my own Fez from the 11th Doctor, portrayed by the brilliant Matt Smith. So I am going to kind of give you a brief idea of what I'm doing. So I'm starting with some hand-spun yarn. The color is a little bit off in this camera, but it's kind of like a maroonish red with a bunch of other colors in it. There's some blue and some orange, which is kind of meshing to make a brownish purple. And I've started with the hat base. So if you know, in my How to Crochet Hat in the Round, in my video number 3, this is 13 rows increasing 6 times around in each row. So it kind of looks like a hexagon, which is whatever. It'll round out once I start going down the sides. But another thing that I wanted to teach you a little bit is I'm going to felt this hat. So this looks really big. I mean, it has the span of my hand, which would make a really nice beanie. But, a fez kind of, a fez sits on top of the head rather than around the head. So I need to make this smaller. So to get the magic number that I did, which was 13 rows, in this gauge, which I'm using a G hook, it's a thick and thin, it's a hand-spun yarn from a friend, so sometimes it's really small, more of a sport weight, sometimes it's pretty thick, which is probably about a bulky weight, maybe just over worsted. I mean, that it's kind of, I don't know, it's not scientific yarn size. So I'm going to felt it to make it smaller. And to get the gauge, I crocheted a little section here in single crochet, which is what I'm using for the fez itself. And I did 10 stitches wide, which originally gave me 3 inches wide. But after I felted it, which I can teach you guys later in this video, when I do the whole hat, this is now about 2.5 inches wide. So it shrank by 1/2 inch, which, to get the size that I need, which is going to be about 19.5 inches in circumference, maybe even just a little bit smaller than that, which my head size is about 21 inches. The average adult size is between 20 and 22 inches in circumference. So this should sit just on top of my head without falling off. As you can see, it's more of a dense fabric. Let's see if you can see that. Where the crochet, you see all those little holes there. If I hold it up, you can really see the table beneath. But you can't really see through this at all. So this is going to be felt. It'll be structurally more sound than this. This is really floppy. This will be more stiff. So I'll come back. Well, actually, I'm going to show you. So this is the how-to part, I guess, or part of the how-to part. So I got to my 13th row, which, maybe I'm the 13th Doctor. I don't know. Anywho, so I've gotten to this part, 13 rows, which is the diameter I'm going to need, or not the diameter, the circumference I'm going to need before felting to get the size after felting. So to make a fez, it's a flat top with sides, so it's kind of like a top hat without the brim, and then there's usually a little tassel on top of the fez. So I'm going to do a back post single crochet to give myself a ridge. So I'm going to go from behind and insert my hook into this stitch and then into the next stitch. So I have the post on my stitch, or on my hook, if you can see here. And then I'm going to yarn over, pull through both of those stitches, and then yarn over and pull through both stitches on the hook. So I'm going to do that again. So I'm going to go into this stitch from behind, go into the next stitch from the front, yarn over, pull through around the post, yarn over, and finish off your single crochet. So from behind in that first stitch, from the front in the next stitch, so you have the post on your hook, yarn over, pull through, which is you're pulling around the post, yarn over, and finish off your single crochet. So I'm going to do a couple more of those, and a little bit faster. So I usually do front and back post with double crochet to make cables and textured stitches, but you can do it with single crochet to give you ridges along your work. So I'm almost done with the first panel, which is a set of 13 stitches. And now you can see that here is a ridge. There we go with the autofocus. There's a ridge right along there, which is basically the V's of the stitches in the previous round. So you can actually see a nice little, almost looks like a braid or a chain stitch if you chain into a fabric. But you get a nice ridge, and once I go around, it'll be a lot easier to see that this kind of makes a right angle where the front or the back post stitch occurs. It makes more of an angle. So I'm going to crochet the length that I want, and then I will be, oh, there goes the brightness. That was odd. I apologize for that. So I'm going to crochet more, and then I'll come back to show you the big size, and then I'll felt it, and I'll come back and show you the finished piece. Good morning, YouTubers. So I finished the hat last night as far as crocheting it, or the fez. So if you can see, it's you know, a pretty normal looking hat for the most part, and you have this little ridge along here from when I did the back post single crochets. So now I'm going to show you how to felt your work. So it has to be 100% wool or alpaca, an animal fiber, but that has a lot of crimp to it generally. You need that to felt, to do felting. Cotton, bamboo, most plant fibers will not felt if you try to make them felt, which can give you really interesting effects if you mix 100% wool with a cotton yarn of some sort. Again, you can use any 100% wool that's not superwash. A lot of yarns are called superwash, which means that in the process of washing the yarn, they set it, I think it's a super high heat to make it so it will not felt when washed. So you could actually wash the wool. But most natural wools will felt. You can use Lion brand wool. I believe Patton's has classic wool, which would be really good. And you can make your own felted fez. So I have two bowls here. I have one with hot water. This is pretty hot to the touch, but I can stand putting my hands in there. And then I have a bowl of ice water, and I'm going to alternate between vigorously scrubbing it in the hot water and then moving it to the cold water to shock it. So what happens with the fibers is that they're like this, they're all happy, you know, before I put them in the hot water, and then they relax while they're in the hot water, because it's, so warm. Think, okay, I'm gonna do it down here. And then when I put it in the cold water, they all want to like just jam together and they contract. So that action kind of makes them do this and form different bonds with different fibers with each other. So I'm gonna go ahead and start. So if you can see it here now, you can see it's pretty holy still, and that there's quite a bit of elasticity to it. So I'm gonna dump it in the hot water. First, get it really nice and soaked. And then I'm going to take it, I'm going to show you outside of the water real quick, with my hands on either side, and start to rub it against itself. But then I'm going to do it in the water for a little bit. You really, it's kind of a messy job. I mean, it's just water, but it can definitely cause a splashy mess. So that's why I'm using a towel on our coffee table here. It will smell like wet wool. I'm so used to that smell now that I actually like it. So it's not something that I worry about, really. But sometimes the smell can be overpowering, so if you don't like the smell, I would suggest either like lighting a candle while you're doing this, or opening a window if it's warm outside. Just something to kind of keep the smell down. Okay, so I've done a lot of the rubbing in the hot water. I'm going to wring it out, put it in the cold water, which is definitely a shock. And as you can see, it's starting, the fibers are kind of coming up a little bit and meshing together in a different way. You can still see the structure of the crochet stitch, which I may or may not be able to get out of the fiber. It might always just look like crochet. So, done with the cold water for now. Throw it back in the warm water, relax the fibers, allow them to open up a little bit more again, and agitate it. That's the biggest part of this, is making sure that you agitate the work, the fiber. Otherwise, you won't get that release and the opening of the fibers when you're felting. It is possible to accidentally stretch your work as you're felting, just due to the nature of the relaxed fiber. So that's actually why it's nice to have the ice bath. That way it will help shrink it again. There are other types of felting. There's this, which is wet felting. And there's also needle felting, which is using usually raw fiber, raw wool, and these needles that have barbs at the very tips of them. And you can get really nice detail on that. It's almost like sculpture work sometimes. So you can always look into that. There's also, it's called, I think it's Nuno felting, which makes scarves using the technique, and it's like, it almost looks like a spider web laid out on the ground. So you can do it that way. I think Threadbanger, a long time ago, oh man, I don't know how long, maybe a year or so ago, did a tutorial on making a felted beret. Corinne did that one, and I think fantastic tutorial on felting in the manner that they did, which was using two layers of felt with a disc in between the layers. That was the form of the hat. And then they put water, soapy water on top, to give it a little bit more, to do what I'm doing here, basically, to open up the fibers, and then felt it to bring the fibers back together. So it's starting to get there, definitely. I might need to do this a lot more. I won't bore you with doing the whole process here, so I'll come back when it's all done. Well, here it is, the finished fez. I am very happy with how it turned out. I had to use like boiling hot water towards the end to really get it to shrink down to the size that I wanted it. But here you go. Here's a fez for the 11th Doctor. If you make your own, please send in your video response to bckrudwig@gmail.com or directly on YouTube if you feel like it. So enjoy, and I hope you enjoy the 50th anniversary of the Doctor on the day of the Doctor. So, Geronimo!